Must know easily calculated productivity numbers. Knowing your rainmaker revenue numbers will help identify how to best spend your time. Hello and welcome to another rare discussion where we get into recurring and repeatable events that drive the horsepower within your practice. And today, as we're in spring and things are loosening up with COVID and with lockdowns, depending on where you live, and business is starting to kind of get relubricated and speeding back up, clients are on the move. There is no doubt. We've discussed this in a previous rare meeting. I showed you some of the numbers and they're jumping up dramatically. And there are a lot of clients with pent-up demand where they have been in need of a new financial advisor, but not sure how to get one during the pandemic. And now they're reaching out both digitally, electronically, as well as in face-to-face sessions. And they are, in fact, coming and finding new advisors, and the business is out there. So with that being said, I know that sometimes, advisors are finding themselves today needing to kind of knock the dust off, knock off some of that rust, if you will. And the first step that I would encourage you to do is make sure that you know your productivity numbers, because you've probably fallen a little bit out of sorts during the pandemic in some way, shape, or form. It was such a disruption to business in general, to the systems and processes that most of us are running inside of our practices, especially when we're now sitting in home environments like you see me in right now. This is my home office as opposed to my more traditional place of business office. And because of that, again, we've lost track and kind of lost grasp on some of the numerics that we have generally preached and used in the business. So the first question is, what is your gross revenue number? So if you are a single sole proprietor producing office, or if you are an office with multiple producing advisors and staff, then this will work a little differently for you one way or the other. But let's talk about by advisor. What is your gross revenue number? So let's just say it's $1 million a year. If the gross revenue is coming into your practice, generated by you as the primary rainmaker in that role, if your gross revenue numeric is $1 million a year, then that means that your time is being valued at, simple math, $500 an hour. So $1 million a year coming in, let's call it 50 weeks a year of productivity, 40 hours a week of productivity. That ends up being a $500 per hour scenario at $1 million. Now, that's a great first step, but it's also a faulty first step, because generally speaking, you are not looking, or should not be looking, at your overall gross revenue number. What you should be looking at is your net game number. Let me say that again. Your net game number. Or if you're a strategic coach follower, what they call focus, free focus and buffer, your net focus number is what I'm talking about. Now, I did a previous discussion on this. If this terminology is not ringing true for you, please go check out the other video, but I'll just share really quickly. Game or focus items are the items that you personally, not as an overall practice, that you personally take action in that drives the revenue of your practice. Now, you also do other things that don't necessarily drive the revenue. They're important prep items that need to take place, but they aren't what's the driving force inside of your practice in terms of like sitting down with clients or onboarding new clients or securing new assets or presenting at public events or whatever the case might be. It's more administrative and all the other things that go with it. Those are your prep. Focus on the game and on those items. Let's just say that 50% of your time is spent on game. Well, now we need to know what's your net game number. So if 50% of your time is spent on game and you're making $1 million a year of revenue that you're driving into your practice, you still have 50 weeks. So $1 million divided by 50 weeks. But now instead of dividing by 40 hours a week, we're going to divide by 20, because remember we said it's 50% of your time is going towards game. So 20 hours per week, which means your game time is $1,000 an hour, not $500 an hour. Now, if you know that number, your mind right now should be flooding with all kinds of other questions. Because if you now are down to $1,000 an hour is the value on your time as the rainmaker in your practice, now you can't help but start thinking about all of the things going on in your practice and what you should be spending time on and what you shouldn't. If the copy maker or the coffee maker is what I meant to say, or the copier, if the coffee maker is not functioning correctly, if the copy machine is jammed up and you're the one fixing the copy machine jam, you are paying $1,000 an hour for the privilege of fixing the copy machine. Or better yet, how much are you losing because of what you should be paying somebody to fix the copier versus what you're actually paying yourself at $1,000 an hour to fix the copier. So you should start figuring out what items should you not be spending time on. You can't afford to spend time on those items. This becomes part of the question. We'll talk in another video about how do you use this philosophy to now identify how you hire. And it's called the entrepreneurial economic hiring model. And we'll get into explaining that in a different discussion. But for now, where are you spending that time? And is it being spent wisely? Because this is when you know you are at the breaking point and you need more staff, or you need to start realigning your staff. And you can run the same kind of equation on your staff as well. So figure out what their game time activities are, what that's worth to the firm, and should you be paying them the kind of rate you're paying them to do certain menial tasks. And maybe you need somebody else below them to handle certain items at a lower cost basis than what it's putting that person on payroll for you at. And now beyond that, let's talk about like projects. So if you're going to pursue a project, maybe your project needs to be, have the potential to be worth, let's say, $250,000 a year in additional revenue. So it has to be worth something that could bump the revenues by 25% to the practice based on what you bring in as a revenue generating source. And if you deem it to be something less than that, then that project is not worthy of your time. It might be worthy of someone else's time on your staff, but it's not worthy of your time. And the same thing with a firm. Maybe there's a firm number where no matter what, we don't want to go below this base number, no matter who's touching it. We're going to say, hey, if it's not going to increase our practice value by at least $100,000, then we don't want anybody touching this stuff. And we just move on to the things that are more important. So this is going to help you to prioritize what's taking place inside of your practice, where you should be spending your time. And this is really crucial right now, coming out of the pandemic, getting some normalcy back into your practice, looking at the systems and processes, and make sure that you are spending your time in the right places. Make sure that your staff is spending their time in the right places. So again, let's know our productivity numbers. What's our total overall gross revenue number from a rainmaker status? And you may have more than one rainmaker in your practice. And then what's your net game number? So when you're actually spending time on the things that generate that revenue, now what's that number look like? It's probably going to about double or more, by the way. And then from there, I'm going to determine a project number and a firm number. And I'm going to make these as kind of invisible lines that I do not cross. I'm not going to spend time on a project that is, quote, beneath my pay grade. I might have somebody else spend time on it, but I'm not going to spend time on it. This all fits together as to how you're building the pieces of the puzzle inside of your practice. Super important stuff to know. Know your productivity numbers. Thanks, everybody. Hey, we'll be back again soon. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Please subscribe to The Rare Advisor. Talk again.